deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host. Today I've got a special guest, of course, and we're going to talk a lot about pain management, which is something I've dealt with my entire life, to be honest with you. I played football all my life, and I coach it now, and so I'm still doing things with football and, demonstrating. And, as far as like as an old guy, I'm almost 54, and I'm still out there kicking the ball around. And so I do experience some pain here and there. And I've tried a lot of things. I've gone through a lot of modalities and things. Of course, with being in the NFL, they've got all kinds of access to all kinds of treatments and modalities and therapies and things like that. And of course, drugs, which I didn't like to take, but I had to at times. But I've tried everything from, massage therapy, and chiropractic was probably the biggest thing for me. Dealing with my 4 back surgeries, I was always dealing with some pain in my lower back. But, as I get older, my shoulders are starting to hurt now. And I'm just kind of falling apart because I've been pretty active all my life. But, pain management is a big deal for a lot of people in the real world even. It's people in everyday general life. They're straining their backs, picking up the paper, or playing with the dog, whatever, picking up their kids even. So there's a lot of things and issues that we deal with in everyday life that affects us with regards to our pain and how do we manage it. And being holistic, like I don't like to take the drugs because I know they're just more or less kind of like a Band-Aid essentially, and you're not really getting to the root cause of the problems. And with all these little therapies and modalities, they might be temporary, but if you do them long enough over long term, chiropractic I think was good. I haven't seen a chiropractor for a long time because I really haven't really felt the need. I've been on my 3 proactive wellness products that have a lot of anti-inflammatory benefits to them, as far as epigenetically, also as far as with getting the curcumin and some other products in my body that are naturally adjusting my genes in a way. They're expressing the genes in the proper way, decreasing inflammation. And so I feel really good about that. But there's things in my shoulders that still are painful. But I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried, dry needling, which I think is actually kind of cool. That was just recently on my shoulder. So I like that one. Acupuncture, I didn't really give it enough. I don't think I did it one time. Didn't really feel a whole lot. It was like a night before a game up in Kansas City. So it wasn't even a guy that I would ever see anymore. It was just one of my teammates' doctors that he always used to see up there. And he came into our hotel room and came up to our room and did some acupuncture on us. But I definitely am very intrigued with what we're going to be talking about with our guest today. And she deals with reflexology. And she's got a huge resume. So there's a lot of different pain management things that she has dealt with for a long time, and very, very knowledgeable in that field. But before we get to our special guest, we'll pause for a quick break. And when we get back, I'll introduce you to our guest.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC 267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
So welcome back. I have a special guest, Dr. Njideka Olatunde. Is a tough one. I had to ask her how to pronounce it before the show started. So she's a visionary in the creative energy behind Focus on Healing Wellness Institute. It's an accomplished neuropath and a leading authority on the cultural integration of traditional health modalities with conventional medicine for mind, body, and emotional wellness. She's an author of Reflexology Today, a family, second edition, Master Reflexologist and Instructor, celebrating 40 plus years in the practice, acclaimed thought leader, a pain relief educator, medication and addiction-free pain relief advocate for chronic pain sufferers and in caregivers, of course, media personality and healthcare consultant, and a creator of Relieve Pain First Before Treatment. Dr. Olatunde has helped thousands of chronic pain sufferers using Touchology and Reflexology integrated with alternative modalities for medication and addiction-free mind-body connection, pain-free treatment in addressing the opioid epidemic plaguing our communities. Wow, that was a mouthful. She's got a website. It's called focusonhealing.com, and you can find her on an email. You can reach out to her on email, focusonhealinginstitute@gmail.com, and she can mention that later on as we go. So Dr. Olatunde, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to sharing information to your listeners.
Absolutely. I think I'm intrigued, incredibly intrigued with what you have going on there, and I'm learning. I want to learn a lot about what you got going on, and the kind of people that you've treated, and what kind of success have you found, and if there's any issues. I mean, you can kind of start wherever you want to with that.
Well, I'll open up starting with the fact that my whole focus deals with helping people to understand the pain-stress connection as it relates to relieving stress and pain, because you don't have pain without stress, and you don't have stress without pain. And so once you understand the pain-stress connection, then you link it to the mind-body connection, so that now you have the foundation that's laid for relieving pain and stress without medication, because it can happen.
Yeah. So with regards to like the stress you were referring to, is it kind of like when you get injured, we'll say, and if there's something that, of course, work, you got to go to work every day, and you're dealing with this pain. Is it because the stress of that pain are you referring to, or just overall in general stress in everyday life?
Basically, stress is connected to whatever is going on in your life. Specifically, stress is defined as something that's happening outside of your body that you bring inside. And once you bring it inside and you hold on to it, what happens is that's where you're setting yourself up for illnesses, and even in some cases it can be injuries, because what's happened is whatever is affecting you outside and you don't let it go, it goes inside the system, and it's got to find a way to come out. And if it doesn't come out through the normal channels of elimination, which most of the time it doesn't, it goes to a weak area in your body. And once it's in that weak area of the body, now you're going to start feeling pain, because that's the stress trying to release and relieve itself from your body.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you mention like illness, you can. I've just completed my certification to be a primal health coach, and very holistically as well. And so we go back into kind of thinking about what we did back in the day and how we survived as a human species, of course. And we talk about, I've learned a lot about how sleep and stress management are incredibly important just for your natural health and well-being to begin with. So I can kind of see the relationship there for sure. So that's very interesting stuff. What other kind of, do you just focus in just reflexology, or is there other things that you do as well?
Okay, let me kind of lay it out for you in terms of how I operate. By training, I'm a naturopathic practitioner, which means that we deal with looking at the body holistically from a natural approach. And what I did was, I'll kind of give my beginning story so that can kind of lay the foundation for what I do. When I was a child, I grew up with home remedies. And back then, doctors actually lived in the neighborhood, so they came to your home. You didn't go to the doctor came to you. So as a child, I said, this is what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be a doctor because I like the idea of healing, because that's what I saw a doctor to be, a healer. So what happened was, by the time I got to school, I said, and I saw how they were teaching doctors. I said, no, that's not going to work for me, So I had to do a career change. So I went into social work. So I became a social worker. And so from social work, what concerned me was I was seeing people going to the emergency room for their health care. And I'm saying, something's wrong with this picture. Mm-hmm. But it so happened that time was catching up with me, because that's when they were introducing the alternative therapies. And so then I went back to school to become a naturopath. But I had already knew about reflexology before naturopath, and I added reflexology to my naturopathic practice. And so what happened, which stuff that we were talking about before going on air, I lost a lot of friends, family, and colleagues to pain. And the reason was because they could no longer get pain medication. And like the number one problem usually were back pain and issues like that. And they were suffering, and they were looking at all kinds of alternatives as it relates to relieving pain, trying to find the medication for the pain. And then I started looking at, maybe I need to look at how the power of touch with reflexology can be a first aid in relieving pain, so that you have a backup to the medication. And so that's what kind of laid the foundation in terms of how I use reflexology in relieving pain. And so from that came the focus of looking at the mind and the nervous system. And we don't pay a lot of attention to that, because the nervous system is connected to the brain, which is the body's communication center. That's where all the messages go. And so I'll give your audience an example of what I'm talking about. Say when you hit your elbow, that funny bone, what's going to be the first thing you're going to do?
Just jerk back, I don't know, just ouch.
There you go. The first thing you're going to do is called verbal release. It could be nice or it could be not so nice. So you're going to do a verb. But when that happens, the nerve endings send a message to the brain, trauma in the elbow area. Then the brain sends the message back down through the nerve endings for your next move is to put your hand on that area and start rubbing it. When you do that, that activates the body's natural pain relievers, the endorphins, to come and bring some comfort to that area. Now, if you hold that picture in mind, a reflexologist does the exact same thing. What we do is reflex the nerve endings that are found in the feet, the hands, and the ears to bring relief and activate the body's natural pain relievers to bring comfort to the areas that are in stress and pain. So with that foundation in terms of when you're looking at reflexology, I'll paint another picture to kind of help pull this together. Say, for example, the electricity goes out in your house. And what you'll do is you'll click on the circuit breaker and electricity comes back on. If the electricity doesn't come back on, then you have to call in an electrician to come in and he'll say, okay, we got some wiring problems and we need to connect the wires. Well, see your reflexologist as doing the same thing to the nerve endings found in the hands, feet, and ears. We're the electrician of your body, working directly with the brain and the nerve endings. So that's the kind of concept that relates to how reflexology works.
That is very. I know there's a million nerves in our bodies, and I can go into detail about all the. There's our bodies are just immaculate. They're just full of just of incredible things, right? Just it's a miracle, right?
Yeah.
And so when you study, so you're telling me, and I agree with you because I've kind of I know a little bit about reflexology, but there's certain pain, like pressure points, we'll say, I guess, in the foot that will help a shoulder. Is that kind of where I'm going there?
What happens is your body is mapped out. You have 7,200 nerve endings in your feet, 2,500 nerve endings in your hands, and 435 nerve endings in your ears that are connected to every system, organ, and cell in the body. Now, the body is mapped out on the hands and feet, and so a reflexologist knows where those nerve endings are as it relates to wherever you're feeling pain. But I want to back up a minute because the area you're feeling the pain is not the root or cause of the pain. It's just the outlet. That's where the pain is trying to relieve itself. So that's why a reflexologist doesn't focus specifically on the area of pain. We work the whole body from head to toe on the feet, hands, and ears because we got to do that to get to the root that's causing the pain so that we can actually stop the feeling that you're having that's associated with the pain and the inflammation that's connected to that area that's in stress.
Wow, that's interesting because you think about like when I was doing the dry needling, and just as an example, when the doctor was I'm like, I feel pain right here, specific part of my shoulder. Well, he goes and he puts the needle in a totally different area. I'm like, what's he doing way back in my back on my scapula? My shoulder up on the front and the side and the deltoid area hurts, and then he's on my back. And it's again with this example, it's kind of like muscle tension, and certain muscles are tighter and pulling in different directions and causing all kinds of problems with a very complex joint, which shoulders clearly are. So, with regards to just the reflexology, and I love that fact that you say the root cause. Even when I coach, I always want to be a reverse engineer. I want to find out what the root problem was that caused the ball to go a certain way, because it's usually we think it's something up there by the ball, and I'm like, no, it was on your first step. So I go back all the way back to find the root cause of those kind of things. So very interesting. And is it kind of like, does it decrease the inflammation in general? How does it actually decrease pain?
Okay, because we're talking about the nerve endings, and what we're doing is, when a reflexologist is working on the hands and feet, to answer your question, working on the hands, feet, or ears, what they are looking for is what we call crystals that are inside that nerve ending. We're looking for that crystal. And that crystal, what's happening is the crystal is blocking the communication between the area that you're experiencing pain and the brain in terms of opening up. So once we find that crystal, we reflex that nerve in it to move it out so it'll come out through the normal channels of elimination. So in terms of what reflexology can do, it relaxes the body, it improves circulation, it also releases toxins and impurities from the system, and it also will decrease the pain, which deals with the inflammation. So those areas are the basic points of what reflexology does as it relates to pain, and that's our objective.
That's amazing stuff. And what kind of patients or clients do you deal with? Just like I was mentioning before, is it like the everyday life in general, just people that are getting older, maybe experiencing just pain just in normal everyday life? Or are they more like athletes that have had, pain in the past? Or what kind of clients do you work with?
I always say I'm in the pain business. So I work with anybody that's in pain. But focusing specifically, the number one pain problem that most people experience is back pain. And that can be from work. It can be injury. It can be from stress. Back pain is the number one pain problem. I also deal with people who have pain specifically because reflexology works well with cancer. People who are going through cancer treatment and therapy, reflexology works very well. Working with children, specifically mothers who are dealing with infants in terms of theirs, we deal with that in terms of pain. Athletes, the military people. And then from when I say that, now we're looking at pain, not only physical, but pain that deals with mental and emotional, like, PTSD, those kind of issues. That is like, the mental health. In the mental health arena, reflexology is now taking a big step forward on the pain relief. The future of reflexology, we're now doing a lot. Doctors are looking at reflexology because they're doing MRIs as it relates to stroke, people who've had strokes, and that is now, reflexology is bringing movement to stroke people, to people suffering from strokes now. So it's a wide range. I always tell my students that whatever you can conceive reflexology to work, it will work.
That is even mind blowing when you even talk about PTSD. Like, I would have never related that together, like the reflexology and helping any war veteran with PTSD or something like. How can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Okay, what we're talking about, this is where the touchology comes into play.
Okay.
In terms of how I created my practice, where I say relieve pain first before treatment. When I opened, I talked about the pain-stress connection. And so I focus on that, relating it to touch. And most people think of touch from a physical perspective, but touch is a lot deeper than that. Touch is emotional, touch is mental, touch is spiritual, and touch is even financial as it relates to relieving pain. And when I say that, when you go to the doctor, and I want your listeners to hear me real clearly when I say this, we have to understand that when you go to a doctor about a specific pain problem, well, let me back up. When you go to a doctor, you're going to the doctor mainly because you're in pain. That's the reason you go. You go because you want relief from pain. I say that to say you can't take your body into the doctor with pain like you do your automobile with your car. With your mechanic. Because when you go to the mechanic with your automobile, you tell the mechanic, well, I'm feeling, shaking, or my engine light is on, or this and that. The mechanic, because they are mechanically trained, will automatically know exactly what you're talking about. So if you walk into your doctor and say, I have back pain, what's the first thing the doctor's going to say? We have to do some tests. Now, that's not why you came. You don't want to hear about the test. You want the relief from the pain. But the doctor cannot relieve the pain until they do the test to know what it is. But in the meantime, they will give you a prescription for the pain, not knowing what's causing the pain, but just to relieve. So what does that do? That affects the nerve endings. So I have turned that around, and I do what's called the first form of touch. And the first form of touch is called listening.
Wow.
Listening is the first touch experience. When you come into the world, that touch is based on the doctor hearing the baby cry, and the baby's crying. That's their communication, and you touch them. That's the same concept. So when my patients/clients come to me, I sit there and listen to them, talk to me about what's going on with them that got them in pain. But I'm not listening for the pain. I'm listening for the stress factor. Because once I hear the stress factor, now I know what is contributing to this pain. Then we move into when I say relieve pain first before treatment. Before I even get to the treatment part, then I can introduce the reflexology, because as you were talking to me about the pain, you were also hearing yourself and what you're saying. So now you're more calm. You can now focus on the reflexology technique in relieving the pain and bringing the comfort. Then we go back to the treatment, because did I hear that you're having muscle problems? So then we need to look at the massage therapist. How do we put a program together that relate to that? Or did I hear that you need some rest? You need some time out? Did I hear we got to change the diet? Do we need to do a cleansing? Is it chiropractic? Do we need to do a structure? See, I'm hearing all of this. And that's how we are now able to put a plan in place to address the cause of your pain that resulted from the stress that you were experiencing. So that's the whole concept in terms of how you have to listen for the stress factor and use the stress factor to put together the treatment plan, because I'm all for integrative. There's no one therapy that can do it all. You have to have an integrative approach. And so with the integrative approach, I use the reflexology as the touch therapy to relieve the pain. So now we can look at putting the treatment together from an integrative approach.
That's like game planning. I'm thinking of football the whole time. Like, how are you preparing for this game, and what kind of things are you going to adjust to, and how are we going to? So again, and again, the other thing I was thinking about too as you're speaking is and everyone who's watched my shows for a long time now knows my opinion about big pharma and all about this control and how about they're profiting off of sick people. And so the modern medicine, or the doctors who have learned how they've learned and gone to school, and much like what you experienced, I think is where I'm going to. So you didn't like what they were taught, because they don't teach you how to fix the root cause of the problems. They just want to, like you said, give some drugs and have you come back for more and more and more. And then again, I've been around a lot of football players that got hooked on Vicodin and hydrocodones and all those things.
Yes.
So it becomes an addiction, because they feel it's necessary, and they feel good because it's a narcotic. Of course, it's going to make them feel good, So I definitely, and again, I've always been holistic. Even though when I played, I had to, for whatever reason, Advil was the only thing that really decreased inflammation in my body at the time. But I had to take a lot of it. There was all kinds of other stuff out there, but Advil was like candy for me. I was just eating it out all the time, every day, and I know my liver, my kidneys hated me. But that's what I had to do. And I know it was temporary. I knew that next day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be in some pain. I got to do it all over. It's a repeat. So it's a constant repetition of a Band-Aid, essentially. So I love anybody who's holistic, naturopath. I just anybody who gets to the root, like you said, the remedies. I love that. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media now about these companies coming out with these remedy books that used to be a big thing back in the day, but the traditional doctor and medicine took that away from us. And of course, there's laws. Can you believe that there's laws against some of that stuff? Are you kidding me? They want to keep us safe, and I'm getting fired up now, but you know exactly what I'm saying. And so I love people like you that step in, and just listening to everything you're talking about is very first off, intriguing, but really impressive that the knowledge that you have, I would look at more respectfully than a doctor. Because you know the root cause. You can however whatever modalities and ways and methods you're going to find out what the root cause of those problems. You're asking a lot of questions. You're finding the plan. You're developing a plan. Doctors don't do that. I love you. I love the fact that you're doing that kind of thing. And anybody who does that, I love them.
It's important because especially when you start talking about, say for example, because athletics is your world, and athletes are one of the ones that suffer the most from pain medication because, number one, I have to take the medication because even though I'm in pain, I still got to go out there and do what I do. And so
investments.
That is one of the things, because I go back to thinking about how can we make it a little easier for them so it's not hard on their body, because that, like you said, your life experience, what has done, because even after you leave the sports, you still got problems because of having to, do your sport in pain. I mean, you were numb, but you were still dealing with being in pain.
Right.
And when I look at that from a holistic approach, that's the reason why it's so important to listen, because was something on your mind before you even went out there to make that play that was a stress factor that contributed to winding up becoming an injury. See, those are things that are tied in. And most people who, right now, we're dealing with a lot of people who are victims to pain, that they don't even know what it feels like to not be in pain. They can't even remember what it was like not to ever be in pain. And so they've accepted the pain as their reality. And so that's why we have to kind of go back. And I'm always asking in terms of, can you remember what it feels like to not be in pain? Or can you remember what was happening that day when you weren't in pain to when you got in pain and it became, a whole way of life for you, that now I have to accept that this is how it is, when it's not. Because it can be turned around, because it's all about mindset.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that there's, with regards to getting to the root cause of the problem and solving that problem, in other words, taking the pain away the way it should be. I think when you get into the pain management with opioids and all kinds of narcotic drugs and things like that, there's basically just Band-Aids masking the pain. You still have that insecurity. If I'm on the football field and I know my back is jacked up and I'm about to make a tackle on a kickoff, I'm going to be a little hesitant because even though I don't feel pain right now, I'm going to be a little hesitant because I know my back is not feeling great, and behind all the Toradol shots and everything I had prior to the game, you know what I mean? So I love this concept. And again, I'm you and I are much aligned with regards to, I bring back kicking again, of course, but I'm very in tune and detailed to finding the cause of the ultimate causes of any problem a kicker is going to have. And this is right up the same alley as that. And definitely appreciate everything you're saying. Where can our viewers find you, and how can they get in touch with you?
Okay. First of all, I will share that before I get into content, I want to share something with you and with your listeners. In my African traditional culture, you never come to someone's home without bringing a gift. Mm-hmm. So I come to your home with a gift for you and your listeners. I have put together a poster that deals with 121 ways to relieve pain without medication that I give to your listeners and to you. Oh. And all they have to do is go to Touchology, Reflexology.com to download the poster. So that's my gift to you for you all listening to me today. And To reach me, you can go to my website, focusonhealing.com. And I encourage you, go to the, where it says contact me, and ask me any questions that you may have and you want answers to as it relates to relieving pain without medication, or even just relieve any problem that you may have with pain. I will get back to you, because that's what I do. I solve people's problems and pain. I also have a book, which is Reflexology Today, a Family Affair. And you can get that on my website as well. It's a hard copy, or you can get the download version. And it is set up as a self-help guide for you in using reflexology. It's put together from infants to seniors for various health problems that you can go there and use that as your guide to understanding how to use reflexology in terms of relieving pain, and seeing reflexology as your first aid tool to relieving pain before you move into treatment.
Wow. That I'm telling you, this is one of our best shows. I'm just so intrigued. I know our producer Jason is loving this too. But definitely thank you so much for your time. I definitely want our listeners to take advantage of your special offer, your gift to us, and I'm definitely going to take advantage of that, because I'm definitely a big advocate of learning about self-care and help and all that, and doing it the natural way, and getting rid of any sort of drugs or anything that I have to take for that. But decreasing inflammation and keeping my body going. And I'm trying to stay as youthful and young as possible. And I'm trying to do the best that I can as well for that. And hopefully everyone will agree and want that same thing for themselves as well, especially the pain-free part of that. Because I know a lot of people are dealing with pain on a daily basis. And you were very, very right. I feel like I'm a victim of that as well. Like, I've gotten used to some pain and I just don't notice it anymore as much. I'm like, yeah, it's just the way it is. And so I think that there's a lot of things that we don't know, and people like you are teaching us to be able to take a lot better care of ourselves a natural way. And I think it's just amazing and awesome, and stay away from the doctor, within reason. Yeah. I don't want to, I'm not going to tell anyone to stay away from the doctor. Of course, if you break your leg, yeah, clearly.
Exactly.
The internal medicine kind of people, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather see someone like you first.
Well, the name of the game is have the mindset of taking back control of your life from pain. And I will leave you with this. When you take back control of your life from pain, remember, it's the power of touch that heals all.
That is awesome. With that said, awesome. Very, 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 thank you so much again, Dr. Olatunde. And we will definitely, we'll have you on again if you'd love to. I'd love to have you on again sometime in the future. Okay.
We look forward to it. Thank you so very much.
Awesome. With that said, you guys, I hope you have an amazing Monday night, and we'll see you next Monday night at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Have a good night.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.